7 days ago, and I was kind of already in this, but 7 days ago, I just had this gut feeling that today is the day that we need to start having these conversations. And it's just kind of boggling to think about where we were 7 days ago. And good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I actually took a picture last night. I went back to the VOD to find out where things were 1 week ago. And just to give you a snapshot, right? Because this is obviously something happening in real time. We're seeing it almost minute by minute updates, and we do have a couple of big things that we're gonna talk about that have happened since Friday. But when you think about it from this 1 week snapshot, it's kind of daunting. So let me bring up the site that I've been using from Worldometer as kind of my what is going on in the world site. And I'm going to bring this up right away and make sure that it is, large enough for everyone. So specifically, I want to hone in on the individual countries. Just seeing this is bonkers. So to put it into perspective, 1 week ago, here's the good news. Good news is 1 week ago, at this same time, last Monday, South Korea had 7,400 cases. You can see here, as of this morning, they are at 8,236. And this is good news. This means that due to their aggressive testing, due to some of the things that the United States has now said that they are trying to move towards, even though we still don't have a time frame for that, but, a fast way for a country to mitigate, stop spread, but also identify those who have coronavirus. That's the good news. The bad news is our now top two outside of China countries, which are Iran and Italy. Italy was at 7,300 cases. They are now at 24,747. Iran, in a similar situation, 7,100 cases, and now at 14,991. So just to give you an idea of what can happen in 7 days. Holy shit. You look at Germany, Spain, France, all of them at around 1,000 cases. Now, Spain up to 8,000, Germany up to 6,000, France up to 5,000. The USA had 566, and we are now up to 3,800, although I still believe that number is low due to our inability to test. So, just to kind of set the stage, 1 week ago, things were a lot different. 1 week ago, people were literally calling me a fearmonger. I have remained steadfast in my motto through all of this. And that is that I am being extremely cautious. I am taking every possible measure that I can take for the safety of my family, my friends, and I would rather laugh about this behavior in a few months than regret it forever. And I'm very happy because my mom repeated this back to me this weekend, and she's been posting similarly the same thing now on Facebook. And these are the little differences that I hope that I can make, because I remember not wanting to do this in fear of what others might think. And that gut told me, fuck what other people think. You know that this is about to get bad. This is the time to do it. And it is going to be one of those things that I will, and maybe even all of us will be able to go back and just see through stories, through people's experiences, through all the callers, just how quickly all of this shit happened. We're in a crazy, this is going to be another crazy week, and we're going to kick things off with something that happened here. Now, to many of you outside of the United States, you're probably going to be like, yeah, okay, welcome to last week, which is true. And we've been talking about this sort of lag that the United States is behind other countries. But specifically last evening, which does have a big effect on a lot of folks, the CDC here recommends against gatherings of 50 or more people as states close bars and restaurants. So right now, the governments of each state are the real fucking superheroes. These folks, man, if we did not have this infrastructure of government in our United States, we would be extremely fucked, because, and today's going to be a little bit different. Before I even make this statement, I need to remind everyone, this is a place of safety. This is a place where you are probably going to hear opposing opinions and things that might even be scary. It's just Robbie. Thank you. Hi, streamer. You cancel SD TwitchCon. I'm a fucking slay. Obviously, that won't be because we want to. If it were happen, I hope that we will be in a place where we don't have to do that. We are in a safe place. However, today my narrative is going to change a little bit, because the way that the leadership of the United States has been handling this is a damn shame. And I don't want to necessarily linger on these points, but today some of them might come out, right? I'm only human. I can only keep it in for so long as well. So the government, now I'll go back to my original point. The governors of the United States of America are the real heroes right now. They are the ones taking action that the federal government is unable to basically enforce. And maybe that's for the better. Maybe the federal government needs to focus on making sure that people can get tested, making sure that people have the right resources, that our economy doesn't completely implode, and the governors will care about the people, because obviously our president doesn't actually give a fuck about the people of the U.S. Thank God we have these governors, these mayors who are like, actually, we're going to close everything. We're going to shut down state borders if that's what we need to do. We're going to close schools, because if we did wait for the federal government to do that, we might as well give up. And I would never suggest that. But, the governors have seen that there is a big hole that needs to be filled. And thankfully, they are doing a great job. So what are we doing here? Probably the biggest thing that we can do here is hear from other people, whether that be in the United States or Germany or Vietnam or Australia, We've had a great amount of people calling in, giving us their opinions on what is happening, how the people of their country are handling it, some of the measures that are being taken, maybe some things that we're not getting in the headlines in other parts of the world. These are all examples. Also, questions. We have now a slew of information that is constantly being poured into a channel on my Discord called COVID-19 Info. Thank you to Jeff Kim, who has also helped organize some of the Discord to create a COVID-19 chat so that we can kind of keep some of that contained within one channel, archive that. Meanwhile, if you need to get away from it, that's where general you could play some games, etc., talk about whatever. So just if you have questions, we have so many folks who can lead you to the right answer, who can help you better understand. And we want to be here for people, right? We want to be here because this is a scary time, right? In 1 week, NBA has been canceled. We've had a weird travel ban that is, I think going to continue to expand and have added countries, regulations. It may even be something that happens intrastate here in the United States. We've had a bunch of schools closing. We've had countries going into complete lockdown. Since Friday alone, if I'm not mistaken, Spain now in starting to move towards a stronger lockdown. We've heard some individuals from Portugal, so I'm curious to see how that is going to play into all of this. Fact of the matter is that hopefully the difference between last week and this week is that people are actually taking this much more seriously. And you've been hearing it from experts here in the United States like, look, we need to take extreme measures. And if we do take extreme measures now, it may seem like those extreme measures were not necessary. That means that they worked. And that is such a hard concept to get behind. It's such a hard concept for people who may already be naysayers to, say, yeah, I get it. So about 1 million people in lockdown in Europe right now, says Vanky. We're going to be hearing from folks. If you would like to join us, here is kind of the instructions. I have a Discord. It's called the Fields of Wheat. And if you just do phoning your emergency number in London, UK, is an automated message saying stay home and wash your hands. That's kind of scary. Yep, Discord, ! Discord. That is how you can join up. The way this works is that I have a channel. It is called Phones. And I now have a log that tells me when people also enter this channel so that that we can get you in the right order. So it looks like we're going to have Kento and Large Bread, Henry and Elohim joining. Good to see you, buddy. I look forward to chatting with you. But we're going to take these in order. I could tell you that today's show is going to be 2.5 hours because we've got something going on at work that I've got to be a part of. So normally we go 3 hours, sometimes longer. Today, a little bit shorter. But our first caller is going to be DJ Kento, lives in San Francisco here in the United States. Let's see what I just realized. I'm not in a channel yet. I've got to be in a channel for this to work. Okay. Let's bring DJ Kento on. DJ Kento, good morning. Very early good morning to you out there. How are you? Oh, shit. I also realized that I got to change my... All right. Now you're going to hear me. Good morning. A really early morning, deja vu. Hello, how's it going?
How's my mic?
Your mic sounds great, man.
All right, great. Yeah, man, I haven't slept. Shout out to everyone who suddenly got insomnia.
Yeah,
like COVID-based insomnia, just fear, man, keeping me up.
Yeah, I've heard that, right, from a lot of people. We are being bombarded with so much information now, right? Like it's rare when you have something like this that is affecting such a large amount of people that has minute by minute changes. So you'd think that would just mentally exhaust us all, but then it just puts so much right on top of us to think about. So
yeah. I'm actually finding personally, it's like at nighttime is when the internet chills the fuck out. And I can browse without it being so much of a constant fucking bombardment of like downer news. I mean, it's been some great news lately. Shout out to my boy Gavin Newsom from the Bay, represent, like getting shit done in California, keeping us all safe. I think all the governors, like you said, being the superheroes that they are, a lot of people should turn to your local government, pay more attention to what your state's about, what your county's about, because it's clearly evident we can't rely on the federal government at this point. And I hate saying that. I want America to be great. You know, I don't want to be a downer about it, but like we got let down, and now we got to realize we got to, you know, rely on our local governments.
I have seen some amazing, one of the things that I have talked about over the past week is that I've found a lack of comfort, Kento, from our, frankly, I'm not gonna even say our leader anymore, right? Like I have been almost avoiding saying his name on the show, and I'm just gonna say it straight up. Like Trump has given me zero confidence at all. But you know what? I've been tuning in more to the governors speaking on behalf of their state, the mayors speaking on behalf of their state, and it just fucking blows me away at how much comfort I find in these people, because you can tell they care about the people of their state, of their, of their city, of their whatever that might be. And frankly, like that's what I think that we need on such a, national level right now. It's like, thank God we're getting it from somewhere. So I agree with you. Tune into those. Almost every single state, their governors, some of the mayors are doing live streams, or you can get a televised access to some of these things. I'm not necessarily on a day-to-day basis the biggest fan of the governor here in Nebraska, right? Like, I mean, he's got some things going on. Like, I wish he was a bit more leaning towards the legalization of medical marijuana, and right. I don't like some of the ways that he's handled some of the spending, but you know what? He's done a fantastic job during the coronavirus. He has created a plan for the state in terms of like, if this many cases come up, this is the action we're going to take. And then when these things have happened, the action has been taken. Like, I've been really, proud to be a Nebraskan, being like, okay, this guy's got his shit together. But then I look upwards and I'm like, what is going on? The fucking boulder is rolling down the hill. And it's terrible, right?
Yeah. It's a constant search. You want to search for that good news. You want to be informed of progress. You're looking for progress, but at the same time, you're constantly battling the realities of what's going on in your feed. And it's like, it kind of sucks that our like news system is built that way right now. Yeah, that we're so dependent on that push and pull. Also, another guy I wanted to shout out is Dr. Anthony Fauci, who is he's the head of the National Institute for Allergy and Infectious Diseases.
Yeah.
And everything that guy's been saying is like, he is one of the smartest guys about this. And
So I got to be honest, Kento. I have had a mixed reaction on this guy. And now, but let me explain that, right? Because I feel like he a week ago was not being as vocal as he's being now. Right?
I think enough people were like, "What the fuck, dude?" And he's broken free of his Trumpian leash and is starting to be honest and open about shit. Like, yes. I genuinely think like social media pressuring him, the news pressuring him, constituents pressuring him, got him to finally break and give out the truth. And he's the first of like that regime to do that. His name's Anthony Fauci.
So he's FAUCI. So basically, he is he's a immunologist actually, and he's employed by the National Institute of Health of the United States, right? So he has been the spokesperson that is probably the smartest one on this coronavirus crisis team. He is the one person who has not shied away from saying like, yes, we need to take extreme measure. Well, over the past week, we've seen him admitting we failed. We have seen him transform over the last week, right? We have absolutely seen him go from the I've kind of got to just like kowtow and say what this, like what to like shit is going to get worse. We have not seen the worst yet. You need to be considering shutting down. I am not going outside. I am not, I am not doing these things. I will not shake your hand,
Yeah.
He has certainly changed a lot over the last week.
Meanwhile, Trump's grabbing that goddamn mic 31 fucking times. 31 times he grabbed the mic. Like,
he's incapable of you know what? I got to be honest with you. I wish I could just have a conversation with him. I really do.
Totally.
I've got to understand for myself if this guy is truly that much of a fucking idiot or if he is just playing the most incredible game of gaslight manipulation that the world has ever seen. I don't know. I don't know, man.
Dude, it's I've been watching a lot of old clips. I don't know if you remember from our conversations. We know each other for forever, but I used to do movie reviews for Opie and Anthony on Sirius XM radio, and they interviewed that guy a lot, and I've been going through all those old clips. He's this fucking guy. That's who he is, man. He was on that show on Opie and Anthony years ago talking about how he's never gotten the flu and doesn't believe in flu shots, doesn't believe in immunization, and he was not running for political office. He's just always been a liar and always been dumb about science. He's just always been that dude. And it's like, I'd want to sit down and talk with him because you want that chance. You want to look the devil in the eyes and see what's there. You want to look Jaws in those dead doll eyes.
Yeah.
And just see for yourself. Like, is he fucking stupid or is he a sociopath?
Yeah, it's pretty scary, man.
And is it a combination of both?
So, look, what I want to hear from you, and we've got a lot of callers today, so I'm gonna try to be a little bit snappier about things. But like, how are things in San Francisco, right? Because like,
I'm just north of there, but I have a lot of friends there.
I mean, you've got it. Yeah, that's why I figured you've got at least a close pulse or a finger on the pulse, right? And
it's like a lot of other places. It's like the entire West Coast. Seattle's the worst,
right?
But yeah, we are. There's an equal amount of preparation and stupidity where you have people going to the stores, clearing the shelves of everything. And then you have people going like, I'm going to the fucking bar tonight, and, I'm going to go to the club. Like there's photos on Instagram of lines out the door for nightclubs this weekend.
Oh,
That and
we had so I'm gonna have some friends be very angry at me over the course of like whatever, however many months this is, because we had one friend who, is a good friend of my wife, and she's been working from home. She's actually been struggling a little bit from working from home, but we were gonna suggest, like, hey, listen, if you need to come over for the day, she's got a daughter that gets along with Mini Wheat, like maybe we can. So we were planning on doing that this week until she posted or was tagged in a photo of her with a bunch of people at a bar saying, we're practicing social distancing. And, I like immediately both my wife and I were like, nope, like done. That's and that might sound extreme, but like that's these are the measures that we are taking. That is not okay. So anyway, like it's canceled,
it's like, hey, guess what? I'm not gonna. It's like I'm definitely gonna talk to you, but you've guaranteed I'm not going to see you for months.
Right.
Like you have removed yourself from the possibility even coming out of this and wanting to see you. Like that's yeah. And then I'm watching on Twitter. There was a woman who was like, Nashville isn't defeated.
I saw that.
Fucking.
I mean, hey, I'm all for the fact that people have camaraderie and are, that's great, but let's have camaraderie without stupidity, right? Please. Did you see the Japanese article, new Japanese virtual drinking?
No.
So
I haven't seen this.
there is actually, this is going to be hard because apparently looking up anything.
Not everyone can work from home. We acknowledge it is a difficult time, and there are no easy fucking answers for this at all. There's no easy answers.
Right.
And it sucks. And we're not saying like it's not going to be hard. And we're not saying it's all going to be okay, because it's fucking not, man. But like, you got to do what you can do.
Yeah. Exactly. So,
and
it's called Onnomi, which is online drinking, and I'm down with this. This is the Japanese basically have said like, hey, we're not going to go out. We've got all of these things happening, so we're going to create this new thing like mukbang almost. But I can get behind this. Any of my friends want to do this? Let me know. We'll fire up a big Skype thing. We'll grab some beers, whatever. We
can do it in the Discord, whatever.
This paragraph is like, sorry.
Discord opened up like for voice chats from like 10 to 50, right? So it's like, we could get a Discord party going.
Yeah, exactly. You can do it with the Twitch stream, whatever. But this is the type of social things that I want to be doing. But I am a little it sounds like San Francisco is very similar, split right down the middle.
It's still similar. Earlier someone said it's the same story around the world, and I was in a bunch of Australian streams tonight, and they're not caught on yet in a lot of places. Like still good streamers, still going to the gym, still going to restaurants. Like a lot of places in the world are not caught on, so it's not the same story everywhere. And I kind of wish it was. I wish they were already practicing social distancing and stuff, but they're just not. They're not doing it yet, and I worry. I generally worry for all. Like I don't want anyone to get sick. People who think I'm a fucking moron or I'm just some Trump hater or whatever. I don't want you to get sick. Like everyone.
Right. I'm with you, man. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Well, Kento, thanks as always. Right. I mean, I'm sure I'll be checking with you over the week, but stay safe and
I'm off to bed. Everyone, wash your hands.
Yeah.
The Witcher song is 20 seconds, just so you know.
Toss a
coin to your witch is 20 seconds. Enjoy. All right.
That's good.
Peace out.
All right. Take care, man. Peace. All right. We're gonna keep doing this in the order in which people joined. I do see that we've got a few new folks that have joined us. We are going to now turn to Enlarged Bread. Enlarged Bread joining us as we continue our phones here today. Enlarged Bread, good morning, good afternoon. How you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I bribed Comcast this time, so hopefully I won't get kicked off the stream multiple.
Excellent. So, remind me where you're from.
I'm in Washington. I'm in like the greater Seattle area.
So, what is considered kind of one of the hot spot areas right now?
Yeah. Isn't it the largest? I think it's the largest right now in the U.S. of cases. Yeah, I was the guy last time talking about education. And I guess a quick update on that. Seattle, at least, they've taken computers from when we had a measles outbreak actually down in Vancouver, and they've repurposed it for low-income people who don't have internet. And so they're actually giving kids with low income laptops and tablets to do online schooling. And it's not a perfect solution, but we do have the technology and kind of the logistics to sort of get that out.
I think that's like fantastic to hear. You know, this was one of the topics that we kind of discussed where I had said I was worried about some of the, low income areas and schools in those areas where, there might be instances of not being able to have continued education. I know this was one of the problems with New York and why they were apprehensive about kind of shutting down their schools right away. But at this point, across the United States, and I don't know the exact numbers, to be honest with you, but there is a list of school closures over on the 1.3acres.com site, almost 21 pages of different of different closures. So we are seeing this as one of the big steps that a lot of states, a lot of cities are taking. We have not gotten any sort of declaration from the federal government that says you must close your schools. But yeah, so what do you, as a teacher, we talked a little bit about this or in higher learning and education. What are your thoughts on now where we are, 2 days later, where however many percent of the schools in the country are now either closed or are closed and moving towards online classes?
Well, I know a ton of teachers, like from my old cohort in college and all that. And, some of them aren't necessarily technology literate. Some of them are being like, how the hell do I still, plug in your computer? And you're like, how are you this illiterate in 2020 with technology? Yeah. But, even then they're getting support from the school district to turn their curriculums into some sort of online, or at least send parents emails to be like, hey, this was the homework assignment I was going to do this week. Can you print it out and do it with your kid, or do it online and then submit it in an email in some way or in some form? Which, I mean, like I said, it's not going to be 100%. We're not going to go full on kids having full 6-hour days of school, etc. But it's at least enough that we're responding, for like a 6-week, because I think April 24th is when schools are supposed to come back online. I think it's going to be fine for what it is.
Yeah, it's everywhere is still tackling this a little bit different, right? There is no playbook that's like, yeah, sure, my school closing book's right here and let me pull this out. So the situation that I'm in is somewhat timely for my son because this is the week that's supposed to be spring break anyway. Well, unfortunately, a lot of those teachers are not going to get to enjoy spring break as much because they are working on potentially sorting out an online curriculum. But I think at this point in time, it's pretty obvious to me that they are not going to be resuming classes on the 24th, essentially a week from now, and they will be moving to an online format. I've mentioned before, my son was homeschooled for 4 years, so this is kind of not that massive of a change for us if that was to happen. I work from home, so again, I can't necessarily relate with some of the folks that are in situations where, unfortunately, either they can't work from home or they are still required to report or whatever that might be. Definitely have sympathy for those folks. So the narrative, though, I've noticed has changed just a little bit, which is even Anthony said, hey, I think that we could see schools closed for like this semester, right? The remainder of the year, but that if things don't continue to improve, this could be right how the next school year starts off too, right? We just don't know at this point.
Well, and I mean, obviously, it depends on how things turn out. Because even if you look at things not related, like Washington, along with we were talking about California in the last call, is shut down all bars and restaurants. But Governor Jay Inslee, and I know you're talking about like governors and listening to them versus Trump and Pence and all that, has specifically said we have not talked about shutting down borders for Washington, at least. So it all it's all up in the air for now. Like I said, we're just mobilizing the best that we can. But I think with how much schools already have things like makeup days and things like that, I really don't think that if we were to say maybe take a shorter summer break in lieu of the stuff going on, I don't know how bad it's going to be, just depending on whether we do start schools up in April in Washington. I don't know about are you in Omaha? Which is
yeah, I'm in Omaha.
So you're probably in a larger population, but how does that help the people in Nebraska that have a population school of like less than 300, right? That type of thing.
Right. And I don't know the answers to that. Maybe it's easier, right? Because there's less students to coordinate with. I have no idea, right? Like, I mean, I'm only speaking from the experience of having homeschooled for 4 years and the current district that I'm in. I think everywhere is so different, right? Even the colleges, hearing some of the folks that are like, yeah, we know we're doing online classes for at least the rest of the semester. And, it's just, I don't know. It's vastly different everywhere, which I think is okay, but it's hard to kind of keep on top of, right?
I mean, we're just a decentralized country. What are you going to do, about that? You have different governors, you have different, just because we're focusing on Trump and the presidency, it's like every sort of response to the virus is going to be handled differently state by state. I think another thing I want to shout out in Washington, because I don't know how many people are viewing from it, but if there are people who they can't work or they're getting their hours cut because they work in restaurants, etc., you can actually apply for partial unemployment. And there's resources out there for that to try and help people cover their income. I don't think it's a perfect solution, but I think now, especially as we're not only are we looking at schools, but also people working, it's like, if we're not going to do stopping rent payments for a month, how can we help supplement those people's incomes? And I think that's something that's really, more important to focus on rather than, I think school systems will generally have it covered, but I'm more worried about the incomes of the parents than, the schools themselves.
Yeah, these are all questions and probably narratives that are going to continue to pop up this week, as for many people, today marks the first day, right, where their kids might be at home and maybe they're working from home, maybe they're not able to. It's pretty split down the middle amongst my personal friend group of folks that are like, I'm in an industry where I have to report in, or our company has just said we're not going to be working from home yet. There's no one quite knows how to handle this situation unless there's actually a regulation thrown on top of it. So every place is a little bit different. This is why we have these phone calls, so we can kind of understand how other places might be dealing with it. And I appreciate you giving out those resources. I do think that the story of education is going to be a developing one, because, right, again, this is going to be a new thing for a lot of people, schooling from home, or maybe not schooling at all. So I expect that this will continue to be a topic that we will talk about over the next few weeks for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right. And Large Bread, thank you so much for calling in again. You be safe up there. I know that today is the day that I think probably both Washington and New York break 1,000 cases if you haven't already. No.
Yeah, I believe it. We're buffing up our testing, so I'm sure we're going to find the 1,000 cases rather than whether there's new ones.
Right. That you know what? That's a very important thing, is that these are just the cases reported, and that is our problem right now, not the cases that we don't know about yet. So, Large Bread, thank you very much. Be safe.
Yeah, thank you.
Wash your hands. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
All right. Next up, and we are taking these in order. So next up, I believe we have Henry. Then we have Elohim. Then I think Narwhal came in late but went to the wrong channel. Don't worry, I've got a log here that tells me who joined. And then Star Zero. So we're going to get to everyone today. Thank you for joining us. Let's go ahead and bring Henry on now. Good morning, Henry. How's it going?
Hey mate, how you going? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Fantastic. Yeah. How's everything on your end?
You know, I needed to take a break this weekend. Even trying to sort of mentally be in a good place is so hard because, as I was mentioning earlier on in the show, it's hard to avoid the updates, right? Things are changing every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, every hour in drastic ways. So I was going to do a show yesterday. I decided, I really just do need to just take a breather. I hope everyone kind of did that. But today's our son was supposed to be on spring break this week. So things are calm here at the Graham household. We've basically shut down our borders, so no one goes in or out. That's kind of where we're at. But how about you, Henry?
Quite the opposite, actually. So I don't know if you remember, 4 days ago when I called in to update you about the situation in Sydney, Australia in general. I was like,
yeah, this is Lag Breaker, right? Right? Lag Breaker in chat.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So, like you said, things have changed so much from hour to hour, but also within the last 4 days for me personally. And I guess to kind of kick things off, on Friday, the federal Australian government announced their mandates and policies and measures that they're taking. They're finally taking action, and one of them is limiting gatherings of larger than 500 people. Those are pretty much outright cancelled. And for me, what that means in my work is a whole lot of fucking cancellations. So just to give a bit of context, I do convention shows. I hold market stalls and booths around the country, doing shows not unlike Anime Expo, Anime Matsuri, that kind of stuff, that kind of pop culture stuff in the US. And so I just go around selling stuff, merch, art, clothes, apparel, whatever. And so obviously, when the government announced the lockdown, today I spent the whole day dealing with emails from all these show organizers, all these event holders saying, hey, we're canceling these events, we're postponing these to later notice. And so, last time I called in, I was like, it's not affecting me that much. Fucking scratch that. My schedule has been completely upturned, and now I'm kind of playing damage control, so to speak.
I mean,
but I think I'll be okay.
First off, I'm sorry to hear that. I think, right, one of the things about this is that we're hearing everyone's stories, and the absolutely insane thing, Lag Breaker, that you are demonstrating right now is that a lot of us are going to be experiencing the same things, but we are on 5 different timelines right now, right? Last week you are where now you are where I was last week, right? Where we had to cancel TwitchCon EU. Our schools got closed. Some other trips that I was planning to do, like this week, I was supposed to go to a pinball tournament in Illinois and go see Dead Flip, and I'm obviously not doing that. But suddenly, like the realization set in, like, oh, you know, this stuff is not happening, right? It is not even realistic. Where 2 weeks ago, we were making plans, we were looking at hotels, we were doing all of these things. So it's crazy to me to see and to hear, you know, this situation. Now, I want to immediately ask you a question. Did you think last week we would be where you're at now?
I knew it was going to happen eventually. It was always just a matter of when. And it kind of came as an avalanche for me because, 4 or 5 shows all canceled on the same day, like notifying everybody. I thought it'd be, you know, one show saying, oh, we'll think about it. Another show a week later being like, oh, yeah, we'll cancel. And then that kind of more staggered, slow and steady kind of response. But as soon as word dropped from the government saying, hey, anything bigger than 500 people, cut that shit out. As soon as that dropped, everybody else responded accordingly, which in some ways is a good thing because it's a certain kind of coordinated unity in that sense. But at the same time, it was unforeseen for me as the guy who runs the business that I do. So I always knew it was going to come. It was just a matter of when and kind of what form and intensity.
Yeah. I mean, to put it in retrospect, we just got yesterday this sort of CDC recommendation of like, hey, gathering of 50 or more, right? Where you should consider closing your. Yeah. Like again, now this is not a government. This is not a government mandate. It's not them, you know, the federal government saying you've got to do it. But when the CDC, who is kind of catching up to all this, is making those sorts of declarations, I think like people are finally, you know, taking it super seriously. So
when you mentioned like 50 people, I'm like, dude, on any hour, there's like 50 people in the goddamn supermarket. That's like kind of, you know, pointless. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and you know, it opens up questions, right? Like, I'm supposed to go to a wedding in April, about a month and 10 days from now. Right. I don't know what that means for that. Right. And this is a hard thing to plan for and to consider. But, you know, I still think that we might see domestic travel limited on a huge factor here in the United States in order to once again try to get ahead of this. So like I mentioned, it's all happening so fast.
And I imagine with the US being such a large country with so many different states, it's really difficult to coordinate, you know, together. Like you said earlier on, how the federal government has been super slow and incompetent. So it's fallen to the governors and mayors to really take shit in their own hands and just make the big and tough calls that you got to do, right, for everybody's sake.
Yeah, and they are doing a great job. Again, if there's an area of government that I would commend from the United States, it is the state and city level, the governors and the mayors, who really are just doing a fantastic job. Really, really great communication. They are reassuring. They are uniting their states and or people, and hopefully they continue to set a great example for, you know, the area that's not doing so hot. So.
Yeah, when push comes to shove, you just look at the actions, right? You forget about the words because at that point they mean less and less. What are you going to do about it, or who's going to do anything about it? And it's interesting contrasting China and the US because China and their authoritative government, like they just say the word and everybody has to do it. There's no say. It's not like the system in the US or other democratic countries around the world where, you know, there's a bit of back and forth. Different states do things a little bit differently, so on and so forth. But I mean, I'm glad to know that you guys haven't, you know, fallen into a full dystopia yet. So that's a bit of good news.
I think there's right? Like I still want to go back in the DeLorean time machine and like really, really yell to our current administration on how they handled this when they first got news of it. However, right, we talked about instead of crying over the spilt milk, we kind of got to deal with the spilt milk. And I feel like that's what the leaders of the state and of the city level are doing. Yeah, so let's keep cleaning up that milk, and every little step and every little bit will count. But Lagbreaker, I hope you stay safe. I'm sorry to hear about some of the changes happening. I hope you'll keep us informed. I actually didn't check, but where is Australia at kind of in terms of cases? You're still doing pretty good in terms of number of reported cases, 375, but
yeah. And again, I think a large part of that is simply due to our geographical advantage. I haven't personally kept up with the numbers because otherwise that shit would just stress me out and I'll have like a warped, distorted perception and start panic buying toilet paper or some shit.
Don't panic buy toilet paper. Just don't do that.
I'm not on that level. Don't worry about it.
All right.
But I haven't been looking at the numbers, but I think we're all right. So I'll be calling back at least 1 or 2 more times.
All right. Sounds good, man. Thank you so much, Lagbreaker. Take care.
Cheers. Thank you.
Yep. Cheers. Bye-bye. I believe that we've got Elohim and then Narwhal and then Bowman Ruto are going to be joining us next. Oops, yeah, I mean, the calls of today are definitely a lot different than the calls from a week ago, where we were sort of uncovering and discovering a lot of the things that are happening. I'm excited to kind of talk to. Star Zero is gonna be on too. I noticed you came back, so we're gonna take Elohim next. Elohim is a streamer here on Twitch. Feel like I've known this guy for a very, very long time. But Elohim, what's up, man? Good morning. How are you doing?
Hey, what's up, man? I'm doing well. How about you?
Well, I'm doing about as good as we can be doing right now. But it's always nice to just kind of hear other people's perspective. These streams have been both scary and comforting for me. So, yeah, just I'm doing over here. How about you?
We're doing all right here in Florida. We're hanging in there. I want to start out by saying I really appreciate that you're doing this. It's difficult sometimes. Like I've tried to, like, especially today, earlier, actually last night, I tried talking to my audience about it, and it's so difficult because some of this stuff is real and scary, and you want to get that information out to them, though you don't want to be called a fearmonger, like you said earlier.
Oh, yeah.
So you're trying to find that line where you want to educate people and you want to help as much as you can, and you feel sort of helpless because I'm sure you're not a medical expert. I know I'm not, but we do have platforms where we can give positive information and factual information out to people. So I appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you trying too, man, because what you said, and I mean, I'm sure this isn't what you like called in to talk about, but it has been very interesting over the course of the past week because I believe it or not, I've heard this same comment from a lot of people that is like, hey, it's good to hear you speak up on this because I kind of feel like the current generation of sort of entertainers and streamers, etc., are not really talking that much about it. And like, to your point, it's hard. Right? Like I'm usually, taking my Twitter, for example, I am usually very neutral from a political stance. Right. And lately I keep that over on like Facebook, where it's like my friends and family and they all know, they've known me or I see them in real life all the time. But yesterday, during one of the press conferences, is like I slipped, right? And I said it was just like how many people sought out my comments to just like, and I was, this is why I can't do that. So I understand, like, most creators, most of these people, like, we have opinions, we want to talk about it, but sometimes you know, people kind of make you feel bad about doing it. And I just, man, I'm just excited that you at least called in and want to talk about it. And, you know, our right. We can all do our part in some way, shape or form, but I do have sympathy for you because it's not easy.
I think, and I could be wrong about this, but this is what I feel, is that in times like this, people seek comfort in all different areas. And I think sometimes it's more comforting to look at somebody who is trying their best to educate people and go, you're fear mongering, right? Because sometimes the facts, again, are scary. I think that it's just more comforting to believe that what you're saying is purposely trying to alarm people than actually trying to help them.
Right.
However, I didn't really call in for a specific reason. I guess I'm just kind of looking for some sort of sanity out there in all of this, because I feel like there's a lot of misinformation. And listen, I played a lot of Plague Inc. Okay, so I know what I'm talking about when it comes to this stuff. Trust me, I'm a doctor. No, I guess what I really wanted to get on here is just educate, try my best to empower people to educate themselves about what's happening. There are a lot of voices out there, and there's a lot of misinformation. And personally, I look to experts whenever things like this pop up. I don't know what the hell is going on. I don't know how it's going to affect the economy. I don't know how it's going to affect people. I don't know how to contain. I don't know any of this stuff. So I always look for professionals. And one of the guys I found, Michael Osterholm, is been involved in this kind of stuff for a very long time. He's got some really good information out there. And I guess I just wanted to come on and kind of regurgitate a little bit of that information to help people. And also,
that's the guy that was on Joe Rogan, right?
Yeah, he was on Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
It's funny because some people hear Joe Rogan and they just immediately shut off because it's just not their cup of tea. And I try to tell them, like, ignore Joe Rogan. Just listen to this guy. Just give him a shot because he seems credible. You know, and he seems like he knows what he's talking about. And I guess my thing is like just trying to get people not to panic. There's a level between like preparedness and panic, right? And I want people to feel empowered to have the information that they need to prepare for things, but I don't want people to panic. So I guess I just wanted to kind of in solidarity add my voice to yours and just, you know, say to everybody that, you know, we're going to make it through this, you know, one way or the other. And we should just be smart and educate ourselves and make the best decisions that we can for ourselves and our family and in our individual locations.
I think this is great. And this has definitely been a message that we have continued to send here, right? Like every single time we get to that point where it's like, we do need to occasionally stop and remind ourselves, like, there is likely an end to this, right? And it is not a bad end, right? We're likely to develop a vaccine. This is likely to become a normal part of like the flu and the cold and all the other things that unfortunately plague our bodies on a seasonal basis. I agree with that. I think, you know, I would like to see, Elohim, the panic subside a little bit over this next like 7 to 10 days. Now, it's not. We still got some like big rocks that are going to fall in front of us. But I do think that we've had a heightened sense of panic over the last 7 to 10 days, strictly because, right, this is all brand new in our lifetimes and like my parents' lifetimes. They've never seen anything like this, right? This is one of those moments in history that will undoubtedly have put a stamp, and kids will learn about it many, many years from now, and we are all gone, right? And it is one of those things. And I think most importantly is that we're all in this together. This isn't a fight that one country is fighting. This isn't a fight that, right, one individual fighting. Like, this is a global fight. And so I also believe that when we come out of the other side of this, we're going to all be better because of it, right? We're going to have learned a lot. We're going to have experienced something together. And I do have an incredibly high amount of optimism that, you know, we're in a better place, that like maybe this will get some folks to think more about climate change and some of the effects that they can have, and listening to the scientists instead of writing them off like they're a bunch of you know, crazy folks. But I hope that now as we enter into what will undoubtedly still be some bad news, that we've kind of all settled into this, unfortunately, like, you know, the scariest roller coaster seat that you possibly can, right? We have to climb into that roller coaster seat knowing that, hey, this bar is going to keep us safe and this is going to be a scary ride, but we're gonna, right? It's gonna end. We're gonna be done with it, and then we're gonna get out, and we're gonna hopefully be safe. So hopefully we've all experienced some level of panic, which is okay because that's a natural human reaction. Mm-hmm. But now we're gonna start to not necessarily find comfort, but like understanding that again, some more bad news is gonna happen, but you know, we're kind of, I don't want to say used to it. That seems terrible to say, like, we're used to this bad news now, but we sort of like each piece of news is a little less jarring.
Yes. And, you know, it's funny that you said optimistic because I am as well. And what you said is exactly how I feel. I feel like once we make it through this, I feel like we were woefully unprepared for what was happening. And I feel like I say we as in, you know, mostly the American government knew what was coming, you know, like this has been, we've been warned about something like this for a long time and we're just woefully unprepared. And what I'm hoping is kind of what you said, that after everything, you know, kind of settles, that we really take this stuff sort of more seriously in the future. And I think that that's going to be the outcome. And I feel that way too. I'm optimistic, cautiously optimistic, that once this is all said and done, we're going to be better off for it. But yeah, I guess, you know, I really, I want like what you guys were saying earlier, I want everybody to be healthy. You know, at the end of the day, I want everybody to be healthy. And the only way that we're going to get there is through educating ourselves, listening to experts, and, you know, hopefully getting on the same page as far as outings and stuff like that. Like I did what I called level 1. I told my family just like 3 or 4 days ago, I'm like, we're in level 1. Level 1 means preparedness. We need to get the freezer filled up with food that we can eat. We need to, you know, go ahead and start canceling some of our, you know, like my daughter takes jiu-jitsu, you know, 3 times a week. You know, let's go ahead and cancel that for the first, you know, until things get back to normal or what is considered normal, you know, and it's difficult, but I think just people need to start, like I said, preparing and not panicking. And I'm not going to take too much more of your time because you got a lot of callers.
Yeah, I do want to ask one question. It came in from chat, actually.
Sure.
Nicole Canoli asks, is Elohim concerned about all of the people who might be coming into Florida for spring break, considering your location? And I do think that's an interesting question, right? Because this is happening over spring break. There are definitely a lot of people who are like, look, man, I need this vacation. I need to go have fun, which could adversely, you know, affect some things. And Florida is a spring break destination. Now, this might not obviously affect you personally, but just from a Florida perspective, any thoughts on that?
You know, it doesn't change what I'm doing because I already sort of had that initial scare because my county is actually the first county in Florida to have what they call a presumptuous positive,
right?
Which means they don't have the testing, but that's what it was, you know. So I'm not like at this point, I'm sort of in the mindset that it's coming, right? Like we're right now in the numbers that seem to climb slowly because they're small numbers, 4 into 8, 8 into 16, 16 into 32. You know, this is what can seem like a gradual pace, right? But in reality, when we start getting into the thousands, that's going to become rapid.
Right.
And I don't know if that's what's going to happen. I mean, I pray to God or, you know, whoever's out there that we can put a stop to it. However, I don't feel like, and this is just my opinion, that it's going to happen. So again, I'm not concerned about the spring. I'm as concerned about the spring breakers as I am about the guy that got on the flight, as I am about the guy that's going to Disney and being a big, you know,
right.
At this point, it's all the same to me. At this point, my responsibility at this point is to take care of my family. So,
right.
I'm no more concerned about specific things. I just feel like the wave is coming and it's damage is going to be from here to there. We don't know, but you know, we just got to prepare ourselves as best we can. So
that's fair. That's fair. All right. Well, my best to you and yours. Stay safe. It sounds like you are prepared, which I like to hear. And let's keep some of that positivity going out there to the world. So.
Hell yeah, man. Hopefully we're prepared. We'll do our best, right?
Yeah, we're good. We're all just doing our best.
Strange new world, man.
Yeah,
Strange
I know.
new world.
I know. All right, man. Take care.
It was good talking to you. Yeah, you take care.
Always.
Stay safe.
Peace, buddy. Bye-bye. All right, so we've got some breaking news since and it's going to be Star Zero, then Narwhal, based off of my chat log. So Star Zero is coming up next. Narwhal, you're going to be immediately following that. But the stock market has opened here in the United States, and well, I mean, pretty much you can just see red is bad. And right now the Dow Jones is down about 2,200 points. Now, we've seen, you know, falls like this, and we've seen some recovery throughout the day. I don't think that we still have a buyer market, but it's just another layer on top of everything that's happening, and it's really they just closed it now. Yeah. What's up, Suma? What's up? We're going to take Star Zero as our next caller, then Narwhal, and then I'll have to look through the order of the other one, but bring in Star Zero up as we're continuing our discussions on COVID-19. Let's hear from Star Zero. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Star Zero, wherever you may be.
Good afternoon, Marcus.
How are you doing?
Oh, fine. Working from home here in Munich in Germany.
In Germany.
Things have been a bit crazy the last few days.
Yeah, they have been. So how are you doing? Germany is definitely one area that you know, we've had a few callers call in, and it sounds like you know, well, you tell me, right? You know best.
I mean, if you think about it, like 2 weeks ago, I was sitting at home at night preparing for South by Southwest, and I went to fly to Austin. We were scheduled to fly on Wednesday, and things went downhill so fast. Like within the course of a week, everything went like batshit crazy around here, and people still didn't take it very seriously. Like I guess on Thursday, Friday, it sunk in, especially at work. Like I work in marketing, and like we are a bit disconnected from the world at large. Usually, I mean, you know some of those people,
right?
I think on Friday it really sunk in for most of the people that we can't go on as we do. And then over the weekend, like we've seen massive increase in government activity, and I have to say I'm really impressed with how the state government is doing, like the Bavarian government, because we usually mock them for being like incompetent and not doing anything, but they've been out there, and holy Christ, are they out there? Like they declared state of emergency this morning, like they closed all the schools for the next 5 weeks. Every entertainment venue is closed. All non-essential shops are closing. And there's a fun fact in this story, because usually in Bavaria, the shops close at 8 at night, and they are closed on Sundays because the church and the unions, they say, yeah, no work on Sunday. This is no longer the case. The shops are going to be open on Sundays, so the world is coming to an end, even in Catholic Bavaria. But yeah, all public gatherings are being limited and so on. And yeah, we sent everyone home from work, working along, like not knowing what's going to happen. But yeah, that's the thing right now. And on top of the whole disaster is my girlfriend is a therapist, and she had a patient that was tested positively last week, and she saw her 2 weeks ago. And now, of course, she is panicking that she might be infected, and I've seen her since, so we both kind of quarantine ourselves, and she's trying to get tested, but she's getting to run around on the phones because the phones are slammed, and you can't just show up somewhere. You have to be sent there by the health office. So yeah, that's one thing on my mind. She's at home with with his son.
So I'm curious to talk a little bit more about that, right? Because like one of the problems that we're experiencing here in the United States is that, right, the administration did set out like a, hey, here's our plan, right? We're going to put together this website, and you're going to go to this website and you're going to put in the symptoms that you're having, and then we're going to determine if you need to get tested, and then we're going to send you to a testing area. And this all sounds great in practice. None of it is set up yet, right? Like we operationally, this does not exist. It is simply a plan that sounds like it is in the process of being put together. So constantly people are sort of trying to figure out, well, what is the process, right? How do I find out if I, should go get tested, whatever that might be. So, based off of just what little you said, it sounds like there's a process, but it is still not a surefire way. My question also is like, do you have to be in Germany basically showing symptoms, or if you are connected to another case, can you typically get tested? Do you have any insight to that at all?
They changed that this morning, because technically there's 2 hospitals testing, and we have a drive-in testing range set up and have been for a week. But you need to be sent there. And at the moment, that's all like a few different phone lines you have to call, and they decide, and you tell them what symptoms you have, if you have any. And then you might get sent there. And this morning they announced that they're only going to test people who show symptoms. So if you don't show any symptoms and you have been in contact, like, you should stay at home. But yeah, the process is there, but it's not running that smoothly. Also, we have been testing a lot around here. So because I know one of my coworkers was tested last week because he was in Italy like 2 weeks ago, and he got tested. He was negative. But yeah, that's the state at the moment, and she's really frustrated because she can't get anyone on the phone, and people keep sending her around.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you right? Germany is one of the areas that they've kind of been identifying for a little while now as potentially a place that could have, pretty significant numbers in an outbreak. We have seen it gone up considerably. A week ago, it was about 1,000. What's kind of just your thoughts on, how things will likely look in Germany? Do you feel like you could potentially be in an Italy situation in another week? Like, what is the general feeling? And even what is how is the media handling it over there?
I personally think we are on the track to being Italy. Maybe we are a bit better prepared because we had more time, and the government spent like the last week on getting hospitals ready, shutting everything down a bit earlier. But the growth is exponentially now. The Bavarian Prime Minister said this morning, we can't really see who infected who anymore. It's we are preparing. And I guess that's what's going to happen. And I mean, even the Chancellor, Merkel, said last week that she thinks that 60-70% of the population will get this virus, and it's just a matter of managing it. And from my perspective, it's like all these measures they are taking now, they can keep them up for like 3 or 4 weeks, and then it's gonna be a free for all. I hope we have everything ready. I hope it's not gonna turn out that bad. But yeah, and for the media, I gotta say, I mean, we have really well-funded, some people say overfunded, public broadcasting in Germany.
Right.
And they are doing a really, really great job, like on all accounts at the moment. And even all the other media are, I mean, there's always the more populist ones that are like cooking up some panic over everything, but overall I think the information flow is really good.
Good.
People are reasonable, the media is reasonable. Question is for how long? Like, if you keep this up for like 3 or 4 weeks, people are gonna go crazy. But I'm pretty sure that the idea is prepare now, get prepared as much as possible, and then we're just gonna ride it out.
I mean, that is one of the things you mentioned, that your girlfriend's a therapist, and immediately my mind went through like, right, like a lot of people are going to have some difficulty acclimating to this, like, I have to stay at home, I can't go out life. Now, look, I can't relate to that because I can be an extrovert, but like by nature, I'm an introvert, right? I think many of us who are gamers might relate with that, right? Like we are fully capable of going out and being in social settings and having fun. And I love to go play pinball and I love to, you know, play board games with friends and all that good stuff. But you know what? At the same time, I have no problem being right here in this chair, surrounded by the things and the people that I love. And if that means I've got to do that for several weeks, I'm going to be okay with that. But you have to imagine that this is going to have a significant impact on just sort of people's mental health if it goes on for weeks at a time. I do, you know, this is something that I've been thinking about for a while. I've dealt with it a little bit as I've had a few friends who are not happy with me that I've basically, like, we've closed our home borders. You know, we keep joking that like, hey, we've already closed our borders, right? Like we don't have a wall or anything or a fence, but we're asking people to respect the fact that we're not leaving and going anywhere, and that, you know, we don't necessarily want anyone here either. I can hop on, you know, Discord and play games with buddies who are a few miles away from me, but like that's what it's going to have to be like. But I imagine that this will be something that we'll be discussing more over the next few weeks as people kind of deal with that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And the funny thing is, as I said, my girlfriend is the therapist, and she sees people in person because in Germany it's not that regular to like have your Skype chat with your therapist. It's not the way we do things because, oh, evil American company and it's not secure and so on.
Right.
The German board of psychotherapy, they sent out a memo on the weekend that people can now use online platforms that are secure. Like there's a few special ones, and move all the sessions to video calls. And I think it's going to be so important because I know people that can't stand being inside like for 2 days. And
right.
If you have mental health issues, that's going to be a massive thing. And yeah, we're going to test this tonight. I'm going to sit down with my girlfriend and we're going to figure out the tech because it's pretty new and the servers are getting hammered, but apparently it works quite well when it does. I'm just feel bad for the older people who aren't used like using computers or using their phones to make video calls. And she has a few patients that are over 60 and it's going to be tough for them, man. I really don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that was one of the regulations that was lifted here in the United States too. They are going to allow some teletherapy and whatnot, which is actually a positive thing to come out of it. So, you know, we'll see what happens after the fact. But anyway, Star Zero, thank you so much for your call, your perspective and insight. Good luck with the technology with your girlfriend, and hopefully that will make things better, and stay safe over there.
Working alone at home.
No problem, man. No problem. I appreciate it. You have a great day. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Next up is going to be Narwhal. And for those of you who had just come in, we've got about an hour and a half left or so of today's show. We are a little bit shorter show today because I've got a couple of work things that I've got to attend to this morning. If you've come in, if you're new, welcome. This is a safe place where we're talking about the coronavirus, talking about some of the things that are happening in our world. We're hearing from people all around the United States to hopefully give you a global perspective on what's happening. I cannot guarantee that we're going to necessarily get everyone in if you're kind of like joining the queue now. But, you know, the way you do that is you join my Discord, join the phones channel, and then I will drag you up in the order in which you came in. Narwhal is next. And, well, let's hear from Narwhal. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Narwhal, wherever you may be.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Hello.
It's 2 p.m. where I'm at. I'm in Dakar, Senegal.
And
so
and for those who are geographically handicapped, where exactly is that?
That is the most western tip of Africa. So yeah, the
Okay.
westernmost bit of Western Africa.
Okay.
So sub-Saharan, but yeah. Now, I am American originally. I've been abroad for about 8 years, and I've spent the last 6 years in South Korea. So I have and before that I was in Hungary. So I've got connections all over the world, and I've been hearing about things from them as much as possible to help keep myself informed. So yeah, so that's what's going on with me.
That's, I mean, that's great to hear. I mean, that's the best thing that we can do right now is sort of stay informed. So this is like really interesting. I feel like I've got a million questions, and so I'm trying to like filter them all through, right? But like I immediately started thinking back to a couple weeks ago when I remember looking at, and I don't think I still have this map open. Nope, I had like a map that just sort of showed a representation of how things were in the world. And there was a time in which the coronavirus had not quite hit a few continents, and Africa was one of them, right? Hitting kind of close to, but not quite in terms of being reported. So can you just kind of give us an insight as to, what the general feeling has been over the last couple of weeks as sort of this situation has developed?
Sure. I know there are lots of connections in Africa to China, and there was a huge worry that Chinese families in Africa would be bringing it back, like workers or vice versa, that people working in Africa, working in China who are African would do that. The interesting thing has been almost all of the cases that were brought to Africa originally were all from Europeans. So they were French people, Italians, they were the ones bringing it to Africa. So the response has been like, ooh, let's put a lot of things in place to protect ourselves from China. And then Europe brought it over. So thanks, Europe. But that's also because there are lots of connections with Europeans here as well. Like Senegal obviously has a huge connection to France. And so it was a French national who brought it to Senegal first. Yeah.
Right.
But at this point, it seems like Africa is a bit more prepared than some other parts of the world. I think because they had the Ebola crisis here not long ago.
Right.
So there are things already in place, and also being one of the last areas of the world to get it. I think the government is taking it a little bit more seriously. So Macky Sall, the president here, he just shut things down. There's only 22 confirmed cases in Senegal right now. There's probably more than that, because I would imagine many locals would not go to seek medical help if they were ill. But things are already being fairly well contained. The police are going down to restaurants and saying you need to close.
Okay, so sorry, I mean, just so that I have a clear understanding, it sounds like these preemptive measures are being taken seriously there. In other, very similar to where in other cases there are already thousands of reported instances, etc. Do you feel like you are ahead of the curve then?
I think so, and just even today, I went to the mall just to go grab some last minute supplies. And there was a guard outside with hand sanitizer. So I had to get hand sanitizer before I went into the mall, things like that. So just everything here has been showing how seriously they're taking the response. The attitude here is that oh, it's whatever God wills. So there's no panic buying at grocery stores. Everything is supplied. And so in general, things here have been they're just starting to get to the point where we're taking it seriously. And from what I've read, Africa is now starting to block Europe as opposed to the other way around. So they're like, oh, you did that to us for Ebola. Well, now we're going to do that to you guys.
Is that so, I can't help but think there's a little bit of let's not use the word hostility, but I don't know. Is that
there's still this impression from the rest of the world that Africa is somehow not developed, But I think after an incident like this, if you actually take a close look at what they're doing here, you'll see like how well educated the health organizations are here. Like the doctors that we have here are quite good, and so like I just think that the response here has been pretty good so far, and I'm actually glad to be here as opposed to the United States.
Interesting.
Not to mention, yeah, and I've also been keeping in contact with my friends like back in South Korea and back in Hong Kong, and they've been going through this much earlier than me, and seeing how their responses has also been really interesting. My friends in Hong Kong, they were told, okay, it's going to be quarantined for 2 weeks. It's going on about a month and a half now. So they were told 2 weeks initially. It's ended up being much longer. Same with South Korea. They were like a week behind my friend in Hong Kong. They're going on over a month now in quarantine, and it's still going on for some time. And even though things in Asia, they're quite controlled, there's worry over there now that other countries will bring it back into Asia.
Right.
And also, yeah, just in general, they're just, I don't know, they're feeling like the response has been much better in Asia, even though it looked scary at first, and even though people were like saying this was an Asian disease. When you look at like most countries like Vietnam or Singapore or South Korea and like how they responded to it, like they have the models for how to deal with disease that like I feel like the rest of the world should be emulating what they're doing.
Yeah. I agree. That's been a topic that, you may have heard us, talking about over the last week as well. I've actually been really impressed with South Korea's response. We did get we did have an individual call in last week whose father works at Thermo Fisher, and he was able to kind of give us a bit more insight as to like why South Korea has been able to respond and being aggressive in their testing as they have in the past. But I would imagine that there is some similar storylines and narratives along that same vein as right Africa, because of sort of some of the outbreaks that have been dealt with there. So it's comforting to hear that, right? It's actually super comforting to hear, hey, I'm feeling pretty good. We're ahead of the curve in terms of some of the precautions that we're making, because I do think that there might be, as you mentioned, maybe some assumption that like, oh, it must be really bad there, right? Underdeveloped countries, like it could just ransack things. But to me, it sounds like what I'm hearing from you on the ground is that things are actually pretty good. And hey, if you just look at this map that I've got up here, like even though it's just a visual representation of a lot of data, it backs up exactly what you're saying.
I mean, it did take a while for the virus to get here, probably because there are fewer flights to and from Africa.
Sure.
So like not as many people are traveling here. And that's probably been what the biggest delay has been. But at the same time, like the world is interconnected. It was just a matter of when it was going to come.
It really was. Yeah.
I was really disappointed with my school's response, because like 2 weeks, like we're just started our vacation right now. 2 weeks ago, like the director was like, oh, things seem to be okay. We're still going to go on vacation to Portugal. Like the next day I called my mom. I'm like, we were going to meet up in Portugal. I'm not doing it. I refuse to travel during this time. And for me, I just thought it was like super selfish to be traveling when there's like a global outbreak.
Totally.
And then 2 days before the break, the director's like, we can't go to Europe anymore. And then everyone's like panicking and like trying to cancel all their like flights and stuff like that. And my school is an international school. There's like 50 different nationalities represented at my school in terms of the student body. So we've got families from all over the place, like a lot of Americans, but then Europeans, Middle Eastern families, Asian families, and they were all planning on traveling during this too. And now they're not sure. Do they go? Do they stay? Like, what do they do? So I really wish my school had been like, oh, we can see what's going on. We can see the trends based on what's going on in Asia. Like nobody should leave. But instead, like 2 days before, they're like, you should cancel. And then of course, everyone's going to go. So we're moving to online learning like a lot of other places. But I saw that coming. Like I knew I was going to have to do that. And so like I've been able to prepare myself mentally for that.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear that, right? There seems to kind of be a couple different camps. One that's like, I'm not a fortune teller, I'm not a psychic, but we have all this data of what is happening around us, and instead of looking in our immediately like 5-foot radius, like you should look out into the scope of the whole world. And then I think that there's a lot of people that are catching up to that mentality, but I've experienced some of that myself, even with friends and family, where I was calling my mom 2 weeks ago and saying, Mom, you've got a trip to Ireland in May. And like, I think that you need to start looking at what your options are now. And, at first it was like, well, we're going to wait a little bit and check it out. And so I continued to do some research on her behalf. And, finally she was like, all right, we're going to do it. And it's not that, it's really not that, she didn't believe any of this stuff, right? She wasn't able to see what was happening, but I do understand, right? We as humans, it's natural for us to, right? Like I've mentioned, I've got a wedding that I've been really looking forward to going in April. And like, I've kind of already come to the realization that I'm probably not going to be able to attend, right? In fact, it might not even happen, right? Like these are things that are hard for us because very rarely in our lives do we have such disruption, right? So I think, it's hard to deal with. I'm kind of past that point of like fully accepting that, hey, these things are going to continue to happen. I am not planning future plans, and I am, in fact, trying to be proactive about helping my friends and family and saying, listen, I think you should really not go on this trip or consider changing this or postponing it. And I know it's easy for me to say these things, but yeah, it's just it's a very, very difficult thing for many people to have to deal with, especially if it's something that you've been looking forward to for a while, or it's going to be a life event. And frankly, it also comes with a very scary side of it too, and that is Mr. Kaji, who's on deck for a call. But last week he said that like people aren't even able to have funerals for their loved ones in Italy right now, right? Like, and that is kind of a face slapping realization. As we move forward and take further steps in all of this, but yeah, I don't know I
think a lot of people want to be optimists when like 2 weeks ago, they're looking at the numbers, they're saying, well, that's not so bad compared to something else. And that's where a lot of people, unfortunately, and it's good. It's like good that people are optimists, and so maybe when I say like, guys, you shouldn't be going on vacation, they're looking at me like I'm a pessimist, like I'm a little bit crazy. But I mean, just in terms of where I was coming from, it's like this place of, we can't really know. And I would always rather be prepared for the worst than be prepared for the best.
Right.
So maybe that makes me a pessimist, but I don't know. I prefer being prepared.
we need we need folks like you, right? We need folks in thinking about this from every different perspective so that we stay on our toes. Like, yes, I do get somewhat angry at the people who have been very nonchalant and have been very almost like flippant towards this entire situation. But I also realize that if every single one of us was in full on panic mode or in full on, like, trying to stay ahead of it mode, like things could get real crazy. So I am thankful for at least this balance that the universe seems to be bringing. And I think now is the right time that we're starting to bring people, the scales are tipping, but in a positive way towards people who are like, yes, it's time for me to take this seriously. Yes, I need to do what I need to do for my friends, for my families, for working, for, the state, the institution, whatever that might be. So I hope that continues to get better. But Narwhal, I really appreciate your call.
Thank you.
I hope you stay safe. I'm glad that we finally got to connect. Maybe we'll be able to hear from you in the future as we kind of continue to watch this situation develop and unfold right before our eyes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Narwhal. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
You too.
All right, next up we got Bowman Ruto. Bowman Ruto going to be joining us here. And let's bring them on next. Bowman Ruto, good morning, good evening, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Or at least for me, it's afternoon.
Yeah, I know. It's we're on it. We're global, right? Like it's a little tough. So where are you from?
I'm from the Netherlands.
Okay.
Or Holland.
Okay.
Some would call it.
Great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, though my country isn't.
Yeah.
That is quite abundantly clear, especially looking at the numbers. Like, our numbers have been spiking. Like, it's clear, like, looking around, people are not taking it seriously around here. Well, there are people that are taking it seriously, but mostly as, like, a venue for profit. Like, today I almost got in a fist fight with people buying up toilet paper just so they could sell it in a couple of weeks at a profit.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And just people scamming each other like, oh, we're here to do like universal testing. And then whilst people talk to all the folks, somebody else robs their home and stuff like that. It's real nasty how people have been treating each other. And it's like very nonchalantly.
Yeah.
But there is also like on a local level, like on local like businesses, local stores, they are taking it seriously, and the hospitals are taking it very seriously. The general practitioner offices are taking it very, very seriously. So it's.
I want to ask a question then. Like, how did you get there? In terms of people taking it seriously, some people not taking it seriously, right? Because like the reason I ask is I believe that we have a very split view here in the United States simply due to the way that our President Trump handled this when we had our first initial cases. Literally, like, our cases are low. We're going to get them down to zero. This is not a big deal. No one should worry about it. And unfortunately, some of that narrative he has continued to spew even during some of our darkest hours. So, right, is it just a result of the slow burn of the virus and the tests and the numbers reported? Was it partially the government? What got the Netherlands there, in your opinion?
In my opinion, from what I've seen, it's a combination of the like news organizations making a way too big deal out of it, and at the same time saying it's just like a cold. So they're giving like completely opposite ideas. On the other hand, it's also we have a very good healthcare system. If someone coughs, they can go to a doctor and they can get free medicine, and they basically like there is a bit of a wait time usually, but it's like, oh, you gotta wait 30 minutes and then you get a full checkup. It's like people are very comfortable and like, for that, it's gonna be fine. It's all gonna be fine. That's kind of the air people have to it. Right now, people are starting to pick up on it. Businesses like the restaurants are closing. At stores, people are now wearing like gloves behind the cash register, and having to like almost clean their hands between everything they pick up from the what's the word for it? The conveyor belt. So
yeah,
they are taking it very seriously, but it's like, it's like ILL Mind on 3 said, yeah, we have very high taxes, but that means we have free healthcare, essentially.
Right.
Like, we have got very low, we have to pay a lot of taxes, but very low insurance.
So the Netherlands right now is where Germany, France, Spain were at a week ago.
Keep in mind when looking at those numbers that the Netherlands has 1/8 the population of Germany. Like, if you compare it to Germany, like, we got half the cases just in like the past 24 hours.
Right.
And we're 1/8 the size.
So do you suspect that over the course of another 7 days that right? We're gonna see a balloon in cases. Do you foresee any sort of similar, shutdown and or situation as what
Well,
we've seen in Italy and Spain? And
I don't think there will be shutdowns like borders and stuff like that, but there will definitely be a bit of an explosion in the sense that I, for one, know the Netherlands is very closely packed together. Like,
right.
it's a very I believe you've been to Amsterdam. It's like that's pretty much how it is everywhere. Like there are I live in the most remote area of it, and I still if I walk 30 minutes, I've walked past every single shop I could imagine.
Right. Right.
So it's everybody's very close packed together. So I think the cases will definitely balloon a bit, but it's also the more people get aware about it, that's actually a big issue. More people will be prepared. More people will actually take it seriously instead of looking at this from an opportunity standpoint, just okay, this is serious.
Yeah. It's really fascinating. We've been talking, it's come up a couple times today that we literally are watching the same story unfold just on different timelines, right? With Italy being on an advanced timeline, right? China on their own, the United States, and even Germany, France, and some of these other countries. And, hopefully people who are on an earlier timeline who are seeing some of these things happen in all these other countries are willing to and are making some of the necessary precautions, regulations, et cetera, to prevent this from happening. One of the things that's been very common here in the media and in some of the communications that have been happening is, we're going to take a lot of crazy precautions. And if we do this right, it's going to seem like those precautions were just that crazy. But if we don't do it, it's just going to get a lot worse. And so I really do dial in and agree with that narrative. And I'm okay with that, right? I would rather see our country take extreme precautions than really regret not taking those in a few weeks' time. I think that we are kind of surrendering to this idea that, it's going to take us time. We need time more than anything, right? We can't do something for 48 hours. That does nothing for no one. That we have to consider weeks at a time, right? That's why here the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, said, hey, we think 8 weeks we need to not be doing large gatherings. That is a significant amount of time that they are suggesting that to happen. But again, that's some of those extreme, circumstances. So if there was something that you could say to, the people of the Netherlands, right? If everyone was tuned in right now, what do you think the advice you would give to all the folks out there, whether they were totally prepared or whether they are still on the fence of oh, this is still not that big of a deal?
I would say don't panic about this. Be prepared and urge your local groups to shut down the schools, because there is obviously, they have stated they are not looking into closing schools anytime soon, which they're gonna regret that in a couple of weeks' time. Okay. It's they have they've limited public gatherings a little bit. They've urged people not to, but definitely not closing schools and only saying it's at your own discretion. Stay at home when you're feeling a little bit ill. It's also, you can't get tested here either without symptoms. They're gonna regret that in a while. So try to. I would urge the people of the Netherlands to be more cautious about this. Don't panic about this at all, but be cautious and urge people to actually take measures instead of just, we'll see what goes. Tomorrow is another day. That's not going to work in the long run.
Yeah. Well, I hope that you're staying safe out there, and I was really hoping to come visit sometime in May, but that's not going to be happening in May, and maybe we'll be out there eventually. But I think
definitely staying safe. So
Yep.
I mentioned like in chat, like when people say, okay, you need to socially isolate, I said, wait, there's a name for my lifestyle. So
Yeah.
I'm staying 100% safe. So
All right, Bowman Ruo, thank you so much for your call. I appreciate it.
thanks for having me on.
All right, take care. Bye-bye. All right. Next up, we've got one of the only people who has managed to call in every single episode that we've had and talking about the COVID-19. His name is Mr. Kaji. He is from Italy, and I think these have been some of the most interesting calls. Thank you, Figbird. For the gifted sub to Narwhal as well. Thank you to everyone who's been supporting with those subs. But we've gotten some really interesting information from Mr. Kaji, and frankly, some, like, to me, one of the most incredible things about what we're doing here, right, is that, yes, we are all following along with some of the information, but, you know, hearing from people on the ground, how things are being handled, what the general sentiment is incredibly important to me. I feel like it's an insight that we can't normally get by opening up our newspaper or just watching CNN, right? Everything is very, very hyper-focused on the U.S., and so a lot of times outside of me searching for the information from you guys is where I'm getting these clues, hints, directions in terms of, you know, what I can be looking for and some of those things. So anyway, I appreciate Mr. Kaji's been joining us, and we're about to bring him on again. So Mr. Kaji, good afternoon. How are you doing?
Good morning to you, sir. How am I doing? I think that answering that question is going to be my main contribution today.
Okay.
So I'm gonna leave that for later, if you don't mind.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
How are you doing, though, since things seems to be shifting, changing?
Yeah, things are shifting and changing, and where I find myself right now is you know, as I've been explaining over the last couple of weeks, like, I pretty much felt like we were going to get to the point that we're at for a while, right? I am not trying to say like I am, you know, I could see the future and I could see all this stuff happening. But, you know, even to my wife, she started to figure out and understand why I was so hyper-focused on what was happening with COVID-19 and the coronavirus, right? She 3 weeks ago didn't understand why I was so, right? Like, I was going to this webpage, this Worldometer webpage, and I was like refreshing it on a 15-minute basis, right? Like, I was seeing what was happening around the world, and I was kind of really sort of figuring out internally, like, this is going to be something that is going to affect us, right? Hopefully when it does, it's not that big, but here are all the major ways it could affect us. So right now, I'm actually feeling, you know, as good as I can feel, but I'm confident and I'm feeling appreciative that I've sort of been preparing and I have kind of been expecting this to happen because I want to be able to help other people get through this, right? Like, that is super important to me. You know, I even see, you know, even my own wife, right? Like, yesterday, there's no doubt about it, she was mentally exhausted, tired, and you know, I could tell, like, she needed to sort of let go of it for a little bit. She needed to just kind of like decompress and have, right, some moments to herself that weren't all this. And that's just what I hope to be able to do. So it's like, I don't want to say I'm being desensitized to everything that's happening. It's just more or less like I've kind of been mentally prepared for schools closing, for, you know, potential domestic travel bans that could happen over here, to us closing borders. And I'm still super concerned for, you know, the rest of the country and how things are playing out. So in a very long-winded way, that's sort of where I'm at.
Okay, so you're not too bad, you're saying.
I'm not too bad. My heart weighs heavily for the people of this world, but I'm going to try to stay strong and you know, be hopefully some sort of a guiding light for folks.
Yeah, man. So that's great to hear. And actually, this one point that you just made about helping people have this conversation, I think it's super important. So I was honestly feeling a little bit self-conscious about calling in again today, because I was thinking to myself, maybe I should just shut the fuck up and let other people talk for once. But the thing is that, as you said earlier, we are on the same timeline pretty much, just at different times. And I think that having stories from what that timeline looks like in the future can help everybody. So
right,
I think it's still a valuable contribution, the one that I can give. So here I am.
Well, and also I'm glad you are calling in, right? Because like as it stands, you are our Italy correspondent right now, right? Like you, I don't think that we've had another caller call in from Italy. You've given us really solid information. You've given me a lot of stuff that I have, frankly, like still not stopped thinking about. Everything from some of the stories about what have happened in the prisons to even the whole idea of morgues filling up and people not being able to celebrate funerals and these are impacts. Like, we think it's bad they're closing bars now in the United States, right? When people can't have funerals in the United States, so anyway,
that helps you put things into perspective.
Yeah, and I think everyone would agree that you have brought a lot to the table and a lot to the discussion. So thank you. I'm glad that you got over that self-consciousness and just decided to call in, because I'm glad every time you do. I want to, I'm concerned for you and your nation and like yesterday there was almost 3,500, almost 4,000. If not more cases that were reported, and Italy reports at around 1,700 GMT every day. So we're still, 2.5 hours from the, the daily update. But, I'm worried because we're really getting to that exponential point right now in Italy where, the numbers just keep flying up.
Yeah, sadly we are. But thank you for saying that.
Yeah, of course.
I really appreciate that, man.
No problem.
So let's jump to the updates now.
Yeah, updates.
As we were saying already, I think in our second conversation, there are two levels on which to be concerned or interested, right? Which is a general level that interests the whole country, and then there is the personal level, what you can see with your own eyes here. And on a more general level, so updates on the situations regarding jails and factories. If you remember, at the end of last week, there had been several jail riots.
Jail
riots all across Italy, and there had been threats of strikes from metal workers and factory workers, plus some strikes already taking place. That both those situations have stabilized, sort of, not really. But we're doing a bit better in that regard.
As best as they can.
Yeah, exactly. So there are no more active jail riots at the moment. And there is a plan to try to take inmates out of the jails and to handle them differently for the time being, which could help with with jails being overcrowded, which, as you mentioned in that conversation that we had, that could overcrowded jails could be hotbeds, and that's not a good thing in this moment. And as for factories, the government has approved sanitization measures, but it's all moving very slow, and a bunch of factories have closed down and will be closed for at least a week. Like some are going to be closed for a few days, some are going to be closed for a couple of weeks. So that was a hit, but it's moving, it's progressing. So that's what matters right now.
You mentioned that there was potentially some potential for strikes. Is that alleviating some of these strikes? Right? Are people happy that, hey, at least like they're taking some action?
It is definitely more controlled, at least. Because at the beginning, at the onset of this situation, it seemed like it would not be a well thought out and planned strike situation, like more motivated by workers' fears,
Right.
than by actually trying to get something. Whereas now it's strikes only if the factory itself is not guaranteeing those safety measures. So that's gotten much.
Okay. Okay.
Then
Yeah.
tell me.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
We were talking about Lombardy, the Lombardy region, and just to give you some context, this is a big region in northern central, like the middle of northern Italy, and it's where Milan is. In case you didn't know, that is the region that has been hit the worst by this whole situation. And as of yesterday, the healthcare system there is about to collapse. Medical personnel is working pretty much around the clock. They only get one shift off every 14 days.
Oh my God.
And yeah, they are about to run out of intensive care units and masks. So that's about to blow.
So, I mean, I would imagine this is probably something that is being heavily reported on in Italy, right? This is not something that we are hearing a lot of on the outside, right? And I think partially because we're so busy over here still arguing whether or not that can happen to us. But the fact of the matter is like Italy has an advanced and fantastic medical resources, facilities, etc. And you know, as you're reporting, like this is very much a real problem that we are now, right? Potentially all of us are going to face at some point or another. So what is like the media saying about this, and what are, right? I would imagine a lot of people are asking, great, what are we going to do about it? Is there any insight at all, right? Again, this is a problem that no one knows, right, exactly how to handle this, how to take care of it. So what are you hearing over there?
Yeah, so the ordinary citizen cannot do that much about this. The main issue that we are having here is concerns either medical supplies or physical space where to have intensive care units.
Right.
And you can always find a building or another place that you can repurpose to that. But the main problem right now is finding. Wait, let me just check out this technical word. It's ventilator, life support machines.
Right.
There is a lack of that kind of machines, and they are about to run out of those in Lombardy. So they're trying to take in as many as they can so that they can set up new temporary hospitals, but it's not as you would hope.
So, I mean, like, and we're starting to see the early forms of this. Like, I have seen some articles on folks saying, hey, we are actually down to a rolling 2-day supply of gloves, right? Like things like that, right? Supplies that you're just like, oh, well, they've got to have 1 million gloves, right? But because of things that they're going through and the testing and sanitization and all that, like that makes a lot of sense to me that they, would potentially be running out of these types of supplies. Now,
that's a real concern.
One declaration, right? So they have decided to lift and or adjust many regulations here in the United States that basically limited the amount of, say, ICU beds and areas of the hospital that can have certain types of folks. Like basically they are trying to make it lift regulations so that hospitals have an easier time trying to expand their facilities, understanding that there's still a limited amount of technical machinery that we might need for these medical cases, but it just in terms of being able to bring more people in, being able to treat more folks. Have you guys already gone through that? Like, have changes been made in the hospitals, or have hospitals been reallocating resources to ensure that they can increase the number of intensive care unit beds or, you know?
Absolutely. That's been going on for almost
Okay.
2 weeks now, and we're still almost fucked. We're
Okay.
about to be fucked, even though we took those precautions.
Okay. So our precautions were essentially, well, excuse me, those regulations were deemed changed as of last Wednesday. So I have no idea how quickly you can go from like, okay, now we can have more beds and we can use this area to like actually being able to use them. But it's good to know that you've already kind of gone through some of those same things.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's been, these last few days have been very weird because I've basically seen stuff happen in other countries that I've lived already, and it's been like, oh yeah, as expected. Yeah, I know what that feels like, and it sucks. It really sucks.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's happening.
Yeah, it does. It does.
It's like watching a movie it's like watching a movie that you know how it's gonna end, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, all I can hope, right, that through these experiences, through what is happening, that to the places that it hasn't happened to yet, that there really is a light bulb going off, a realization that, you know, we're not there, but shouldn't we just not get there? And I think that's like the most confusing thing about panic right now, right? Is that if you are a country that is on this list that has, you know, 55 cases in Panama, right? Like, unfortunately, now you can look back and go, okay, well, every single one of these countries that is incredibly stressed, that is potentially dealing with medical resource overload, that is closing things down, they were at 55 cases too, right? Like, of course, every country, every city, every province is going to be a little bit different, but we really have to start sort of thinking ahead, I think, for a lot of countries in this situation. It could get to that point. Now, not suggesting like everyone should shut down everything. We should just be like one big shutdown country or world of shut. But like, we have to be realistic to think that none of us are safe, right? Like, this is a situation that could happen to a lot of countries right now that are just kind of showing first signs of things. Not true everywhere, obviously not true everywhere, but certainly in a lot of places.
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I also have some good news, though.
All right. Well, we need good news, too.
Hopefully.
Okay.
It's nothing that's been really confirmed in an official statement, but so remember that the way the quarantine worked here was by degrees, right? The first thing that happened was that a number of small towns in northern Italy got quarantined and became a red zone before this whole thing was later expanded to northern Italy in general and then to the whole country, right?
Right.
So those first sites, those first towns that were quarantined, entered quarantine on February the 23rd. All right.
Okay.
And there have been some data that came out in the last couple of days about this. And apparently these original sites started showing a decrease in the rates of infection starting from March the 3rd, so about 10 days later. And the two main original sites, the two most affected original sites, the first one showed no new cases on March the 11th, if I recall correctly, either the 10th or the 11th. And it's been either no cases or tops 2 new cases since then. Whereas the second biggest site at the onset of this whole thing in Italy is now for the 4th consecutive day at 0 new cases. So what does this mean? This means that this could mean that these containment measures are working, and we could have a timeline.
That's
right?
interesting. I mean, that of course, that is positive news. I think for some, that is negative news because I think everyone still wants to avoid shutdown, right? Everyone wants to avoid inevitably what needs to happen, right? However, eventually being able to analyze that data and look at that data means that countries are going to be able to have a plan that has a little bit more substance to it than we're flying by the seat of our pants. We're going to try something and we hope it works. And this is that crucial moment where this needs to be one of the most important things that people are talking about. That
absolutely
that these measures have an effect, and this is what it is. We of course need to confirm and verify that, as we most likely will, as more people and more countries are going into a lockdown that is similar. Unfortunately, right, like we want results now, and we are dealing with the crisis where results do not happen overnight, right? We know that like we need to evaluate things for 10 days, like you said, or 16 days or 8 weeks, as the CDC is saying. But I do agree with you that there is absolutely positive news to hear from that. I think the sort of difficult part of that positive news is what you've got to do to achieve what could be a layer of success.
Yeah, definitely. And next week, starting today, actually this week, starting from today to the 23rd of March, is going to be where we're going to hopefully start seeing results of the country-wide isolation. This is where the first results, because
that would have been 10, right? Show up. And honestly, I think that will maybe even speak louder than what you said originally, right? Simply because even though we're seeing the changes, or, we're potentially seeing the changes like you just suggested, we're still seeing those cases go up in Italy. So again, like it's hard to put success when you're still seeing the numbers, but you kind of have to be looking at the bigger picture of
course,
things, or maybe actually the smaller picture, actually. Like,
I mean, you have to have realistic expectations, right? You cannot hope to have results faster on a grand scale. Rather, if nothing happens in 10 days on a national level, I mean, it's going to make more sense because it's harder to contain things on a national scale. So that's why it's not exactly the same time frame that we are looking at, but it's a longer one.
Right.
But yeah, it's still a first good, positive, possible outcome.
I mean, it's good, right? We need these right now, because we are, we like the United States is absolutely going into like all right, everything's bad news. Like, I hate to say it, but it's all bad news. Things are closing. You might be asked to work from home. Bars and restaurant, like a lot of folks here, they are closing like in-person dining and saying these restaurants are able to be open for delivery and takeout, or maybe just delivery. I don't know. Like it's every place is a little bit different, but hopefully this is something that catches on, and that the leaders of Italy and some of the medical professionals in Italy will be able to communicate to the rest of the world, like, hey, we took this action. Here's what we are seeing 10 days later. Here's now what we're seeing 10 days after we closed everything down. So other countries, you've got to do what's best for your folks, but use us as a potential model.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of people right now are talking about, are we going to be the next Italy? So, it's time to pay attention to that.
It is.
Yeah.
And going back to your original question, how am I doing?
Yeah.
In case you're going to be the next Italy, let me just tell you, it sucks to be Italy right now. I'm not doing too well.
From a mental health perspective,
the last few days have been tough. So let me give you just a little bit of context. I work remotely, so I'm used to being at home. I'm a gamer, so I'm used to spending prolonged periods of time just not going out and not physically seeing people. It's still weighing very heavily on me. probably the fact that I live alone, I'm on my own here, does not help, because
Right.
I do not get any kind of human interaction during the day. So that's probably a big factor.
Have you been trying to up your virtual interactions as much as you can?
Oh yeah, I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
That's good.
I was just about to say, so the one thing that's saving me in these days is streaming, man. And I gotta say this, and it's gonna sound super cheesy, but it's something that's been really lifting my mood in the past week. Being able to just come on here and just turn on the stream and just have a chat for a few hours with people.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a kind of interaction that, yeah, a phone call doesn't give you.
Right.
So, yeah, that's been a big help. But in spite of that, I have to say the last 2 or 3 days have been really, really tough. Like until yesterday, I hadn't gone out for 4 days straight, like not even poking my head outside. And yesterday, I was freaking out. I had a few glass bottles that I was saving up just so I could have an excuse to go out and take out the trash in case I needed it. We're at this point. Like, people are fighting over who takes out the dog.
Yeah. No, I mean that makes sense. That makes sense.
And yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Total utter shit.
we definitely appreciate you calling in. I would love it if the chat would give some purple hearts or some love to Mr. Kaji. He's been pretty consistent on calling in, and hopefully we are helping you, even if it's in the slightest bit. But I agree with you. I think streaming has also been a great distraction in some cases. It's been a great way to talk to other folks about what is happening, and I appreciate chat getting involved there. And yeah, Mr. Kaji, we're wishing you the best, and I hope that you will keep calling in, man. I'll always take your calls, even if it's to check in on you, bro. So
I really appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
All right. Well, take care, man. I'm going to take a few more calls.
You too.
All
Have
right,
a good one.
peace, dude. Bye.
Thank you for having me.
I won't lie, man. I get like a little emotional over this shit. Like, I feel for Mr. Kaji and the whole nation and everyone who is dealing with this. This is why I want to do this too. I need this just as much as everyone else does, right? My wife needs it. We all need this. This is unprecedented in terms of a world event, and frankly, it's also the type of world event where we haven't quite had this type of connectivity and interaction on a virtual sense too, and it feels really amazing to be able to have that sense of community, and like, hey, there might be other people who are treating this really flippant and in a nonchalant manner, and it's just like it does give me hope for mankind, and you are all amazing humans, and I appreciate you spending some time with me today. I've only got about 25 minutes left. I've got a few work things that I'm doing today. So next up, I want to bring Chili Willy's on, and we'll probably get to everyone's call, but we'll have to be a bit. I'll have to be snappy with all of our calls. But we're gonna bring Chili Willy's on. If I'm not mistaken, he looked like he was a partner here on Twitch. Let's bring Chili Willy's. Chili Willy's. Good morning, afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. How's it going?
I'm doing fine, thanks. I'm actually in like central Washington state, so I'm about like 3 hours east.
Okay.
Of, like the epicenter in the U.S., right?
Okay.
And it's been kind of weird because there's been a lot of mixed messages, I feel like.
All right.
And I'm a person to get information from many different sources and authoritative sources. And I feel like my school's been sending me mixed messages. I go to a university in Central Washington, and like they didn't want to really talk about it. It seemed like for a while, people were talking about their schools closing and different things. And I looked through my university inbox thinking about it, like, when did I first get an email where my school actually talked about COVID? And I think it goes into March before they even really started even discussing it at all. And they didn't even want to close campus. My school's really stubborn about that. And just like finally last week, they are moving spring online and everything. But the weird thing is commencement, I'm a senior, they haven't even talked about canceling it or anything. And I'm just thinking, like, I think that's very strange. And so I just feel like I'm getting a lot of mixed signals. Like, the CDC is saying, like, do all these things. But then like the president behaves a certain way. And the weirdest thing about the whole situation to me, though, and I maybe people have been thinking this, but, we have these numbers, we have these case numbers, in all these different countries, and we're hearing about what's going on and the lockdowns and everything. But what I feel like isn't being communicated is what really is COVID. Like, we know it's a respiratory disease, but I think there's part of the misinformation that's going around is that, oh, it's just like the flu, and it looks like, how does it look different than the flu? And I think that's a big problem, is that we're not really understanding what it actually is. And so people aren't taking it seriously because they think, oh, it's just bad for the elderly and young children like the flu.
Yeah. I honestly, I think this is a great conversation. And I think you're also right in sort of like asking that question, because partially we are so distracted from everything that is happening, right? I mean, and rightfully so. Our world is going through immense changes. We're dealing with struggles and challenges that we've never dealt with before. And frankly, what you are asking is probably the reason that I early on took a very vested interest in all of this, right? I've been following ever since sort of things started being discussed in December, but really starting to kind of like have that moment sink in where, oh, this is going way beyond just the initial reports of what we're hearing in China at an early stage. And I think one of the reasons why, A, I got so angry when people said, oh, it's just like the flu, and B, I took such a vested interest is because how often, I mean, in our lifetime, have we had something introduced that we didn't know about, or that was new, or had the chance to evolve, or we didn't have the vaccine for, right? Like, has it happened? It totally has, right? And we can look at some of those things, whether it be, H1N1, SARS, right? Even like for some people in this lifetime, the discovery of AIDS and what this is and how it can affect us, and can we create a vaccine, right? Like, but we do seem to be so early at the discovery phase of this. And I think that we're just battling in the face of, like, we know one thing, this thing is incredibly infectious, right? Like it based off of what we are seeing and the numbers and what we're going through, like, that's one thing we know about it. But, we don't know a whole lot about this. I think that some of the early misinformation and, some of the confusion around it is the fact that right when we were first discovering some of the symptoms and they were being described, it's very natural for us to be like, yeah, it's like the flu, right? I think that was the natural reaction. But like where we are at now, I wonder, like, how long will it be before we actually do know, right? Like, we need to have confidence that there are people out there that are like, hey, those people are helping with the crisis. I'm going to try to break down and understand this. Absolutely, there's been some experts who have come out and said, we are focused on, mapping this thing, understanding what it is, trying to develop a vaccine, but we might not know until way, way beyond just what this is and how it could affect us, right? This could be the new flu that we deal with on a seasonal basis, that we do end up having a vaccine for, but that people are still going to get it. It is an incredibly big thing to think about in the context that you're putting it.
Yeah, and it's just been like a very weird transition for the US, I think, because of, you're talking about like the way that we've responded is really not efficient. And so I think that just made more people feel like it wasn't a big deal, and that, people don't really need to care about it as much as they do. But even though that's wrong, obviously, because we can see what's going on in Europe and other places. But
so one of my guilty pleasures is disaster movies, right? I love Armageddon, The Day After Tomorrow, 2012, like all these ridiculous, disaster movies, right? And there's a part of me that like thinks about these a lot when we are dealing with all of this, right? Because just break it down, right? Armageddon is about an asteroid that is hurling towards Earth. We've heard it all before. And right, their big plan, which is totally ridiculous and extreme, is to blow it up with an atomic bomb and separate it into multiple pieces so it goes around the Earth, right? Like you break that down and you're like, that sounds like a movie. That sounds like entertainment. I think in the grand scheme of things, if you really think about the coronavirus from a disaster movie perspective, a lot of what is being proposed right now, and why I do commend the state level and the city level of our governments, is that they are doing the equivalent of fucking sending Bruce Willis and his team up to the asteroid to land on it and put a fucking nuclear bomb on it. And that is closing down schools. That is putting regulations on the number of people that are able to gather in a place. That might be closing down state borders, right? Like these are the exact same extreme actions that people are taking in these movies in order to solve this crisis. And, I think, again, I've said it a few times, but where I feel like the confusion has lessened is on the state level, on the city level. And you're right. Like early on, we're still seeing confusion, right? And I think that all started with the fact that we had a leader come out and basically say, we got 15 cases, but next week it's going to be close to 0, right? That we've got a leader that continues to say, stay calm. This is going to magically disappear, right? Like we kind of need that disaster movie hero, that president that is going to fucking grab that microphone, that is going to unite everyone, that is going to keep people calm while we send fucking Bruce Willis up to the asteroid to blow it up with an atomic bomb and separate it into two pieces. Like, I want that Independence Day president, man. I need that guy that I feel like is going to hop in one of those planes himself to go fight the aliens in ID4, right? I know I sound totally fucking bonkers when I say all this, but I really do blame a lot of that confusion. I blame a lot of the silencing, the early, like the people who have the right things to say are not saying them because they are worried about the fact that we have someone else who is literally just completely saying the exact opposite of what they are saying.
Yeah, and I want to kind of talk about like the whole Twitch perspective too, right? So
yeah.
I've been streaming on Twitch for a long time, and I think that the weird thing for me has been like trying to both like create an environment that isn't like a news ticker. That's what I kind of the term I came up with for it, right? Because you go on Twitter, as soon as you go on Twitter, even if you ignore the news tab, if you ignore many celebrity accounts, like I don't follow a lot of celebrity accounts. Oh, you follow LCS. This got canceled. Oh, it's COVID. Okay, obviously, right? Like
right.
It's just this bombardment of all these different things. And so what I kind of started doing was like, hey guys, like follow the recommendations, but I don't want people to come into my channel and be like, oh, there's, you know, this news or like this thing, because it doesn't really help. Like, I think the best way for us to get through it and to help each other is to have strength and be kind and think about what each other are going through instead of like just echoing, you know, the negativity rather than, you know, just following the recommendations, doing what you can do.
I mean, I agree with you. Of course, like I've basically turned my streams just into this. So, I mean, but I understand, right? Like to me, this isn't my job. I mean, it is my job in an indirect way, but to me, streaming for as long as I've been streaming is just more about, right, what am I playing at the time, getting together with people. And I really do understand the difference, right, that you're talking about. And, you know, we even saw this, if you remember, right around 4 years ago after, at least I'm sure if you were streaming around that time, right, people wanted to come in and they kind of wanted to talk politics. And there was a time where I remember saying like, hey, you guys, like, this is where I need to be to step away from it, right? But it's weird because everything that's happening around us, as you mentioned, things that affect us directly, whether that's, hey, Rocket League has gone fully online, or there's no longer this that we get to watch. There is a level of respect that I think everyone needs to adhere to, right? There are places going to be on Twitch. If you want to go like right here, 3 hours a day, 3 times a week, get together, talk about it, and then hopefully know that you can go to all the other channels and just kind of like chill and relax and have a good time and not focus on those things. But I do think, like, as you're saying, the most important thing is as a streamer, you probably need to, you know, set the expectations of, hey, I need this time to be like COVID-19 free. You know, I set up a separate chat in my Discord where I'm like welcoming people to go talk about it, right? You are a community in some way, shape, or form. So I think it is important that like people of your community probably want to have that discussion. But I think also you have every right to set that expectation as a streamer, as a leader in a community to say, hey, here's how, you know, this is affecting everyone. Here's how we're going to kind of handle this within our community.
Yeah, and I do like that you're doing these shows. And I was thinking about something while you were talking through that, which is I think Discord's actually a really good way to kind of separate that out if you really want to split that, right? You can just have that one area like, okay, you want to talk about this, that's great. Like, you know, share the information, share what's going on, that's fine. But then on your channel, it's like, you know, someone comes in and starts talking about, you know, dropping more, you know, numbers that don't really help. You can just, you know, have that text command that's like, hey, you know, do what the CDC says.
Exactly.
But like, don't drop numbers that don't do anything.
Exactly. I mean, if it helps at all, like we created 2 channels. One is called COVID-19 Info, and shout out to Jeff Kim who helped me get all this set up. But one's called COVID-19 Info. It does have slow mode. It's not meant for discussion. It's just meant for people to drop in like, oh, hey, I found this article, or here's a tracker that I use that might be helpful. It is a way to just put, you know, information out there. And then just in order to keep things kind of, you know, not only like to archive it from a historical perspective, but to like keep it separate so that, you know, people can choose like, I need an escape and I want to just be in general and chill in with folks. But if you want to talk to other people, having that destination, we just set up another chat room. It's just COVID-19 chat. And that's where we try to keep it. And you're absolutely right. As streamers, right, it is important to set those expectations, right? If you're an open community, you shouldn't be too surprised if people might come in and just start talking about what's happening or what are your thoughts on it, etc. That's where, you know, I think sometimes we get, myself included, right? Like I had to say yesterday in Discord, like, I really want to do a show here on Sunday, but I need to take a break from this too, right? Like I can't be dealing with this all the time. And even though we are all dealing with it all the time, setting those expectations, everyone respected that. Everyone has been respecting sort of the chat in the different areas. Right. It's important that as a streamer Just make it very clear. Once you have made it clear with your audience and your community, they're going to help you spread that message too. Hey, this is chill out time while we're in chat, but check out Discord, go in this channel. People are definitely wanting to have that discussion.
Yeah, and how do you think places like Twitch and Discord and maybe like Mixer and YouTube are helping people? I mean, I've been seeing some different things like, share your channel, like share your content, like if you're talking about, what people can do or just like learning skills, like it's kind of a weird time because people have time they don't normally have to kind of go and explore places that they might not have explored,
So I want to answer your question, but I'm going to need basically the rest of the show in order to answer it. So I'm going to apologize to Anerg and Ma. No, I'm just letting the two callers that are sitting in phones, Anerg and Ma. I'm not going to be able to get to your call today, but if you want to call in Wednesday, I will prioritize your calls. And but I do think what Chili is asking is pretty important, and I do want to speak to this, and I have to end in about 8 minutes. So I just wanted to apologize to them because they've been very patient. But if you come back Wednesday, I'll prioritize your calls. Chili, to answer your question, I think that in a weird way there is a silver lining and a really positive outlook that people can have for Twitch, Mixer, YouTube, Discord, because, right, like we've been living in this growing virtual world for a very, very long time now, right? And for many of us, it is a means of escape. It's a means for building community that is on a global scale, something that we as humans have been incredibly limited to doing, even in our own, right, like fleshy, right? Like I can build a group of friends, but now I can build, right, a group of friends that is in 18 different countries around the world, and probably more, right? Like we've really adapted this virtual world to our life. I think in this particular instance, we are staying indoors. We are looking for answers. We are looking for entertainment. We are looking for ways to relax and escape. And I think all of these places that you mentioned, these platforms, offer not only people to have a voice and share their thoughts and their feelings, but to have those discussions, to find a means of escape. So yes, I do see all of these platforms being a big part of how we all get through this, right? One of the things that is going to continue to come up as a topic is how do we all mentally stay sane through all this? And, what happens if I don't actually have human interaction for, weeks at a time? This is mental health issues and problems that streamers have been asking themselves and dealing with for years now. And now it's like happening on such an extreme level, right? So like, I think the role that all of these places have to play is massive, because it lets us be together in a virtual way like we have been, but it really shows the value of them all, right? Like people see the value, and like that, me being here right now talking to however many people, 300 people that are here, like that is valuable to me. The value that I have been able to get out of people who have called in from Italy, from Washington, from Vietnam, from Australia has been crazy valuable. It's been comforting. It's made me like have grounding on sort of like what is happening and what could be happening in the future. Like I know I'm looking at this from a corona, virus perspective, but like this is why I have always found building communities online and globally amazing. And this is like us in exercise. So from that perspective, I think that we should all be very grateful that we have this, because imagine a world where we didn't. Imagine a world where we're just on AOL Instant Messenger and we're just blasting messages back to each other or in groups, right? Like that might be the closest we have it. But there is a human element that comes out when you think about things like YouTube, Mixer, and specifically Twitch, where we can all sit here, you can call in, we can have a discussion, the human side of it comes out, and then the community side of it, right? Like, this truly shows how deep and how deeply rooted something like a Twitch can actually be. So I'm very appreciative of like the greater Twitch community, all of the streamers that are sort of dealing with this. And this, there's another topic that kind of goes along with this, in that, like, as someone who works at Twitch and works specifically in creator development, like, I think that there will be more people to watch streamers, but, like, I'm not going to lie, I'm worried about how this is affecting other people and how viewers might need to put their subscriptions on hold for a few months if they're dealing with problems. And, we've still yet to see the ripples that are going to happen from all this. And this is still a pretty brand new industry. And although it brings us together and creates these community and camaraderie, like, I'm still very concerned and want to make sure that I'm keeping a close eye on the creator community as well, because I want to make sure that we can all get through this no matter what.
Yeah, and that's something I was kind of thinking about as well. Like, you're seeing, people even outside of Twitch, like, that are in freelance. I mean, streaming is freelance, right, to an extent. So you have, like, all these artists and people doing events and stuff, and they're all like, all my stuff got canceled. And it's kind of crazy because, we're just, we don't really think about all of, how many people work in that capacity. I think that education makes you think like, oh, you go to college, you get a full-time job, and you're just secure, but that's not really how it works.
Yeah. God, I would love, like, this particular topic is something I feel like I could talk about for hours. And I feel like we've just kind of scratched the surface. So hopefully, this is something that we'll continue to bring up, because I do want to hear from, I think in the next few days, like this next period of time, like, it will be very interesting to hear from Twitch streamers, like, how has this affected you? Have you seen some numbers go up? Like you said, has it been difficult dealing with the community and sort of what some of the things that they're dealing with too, right? Because I mean, a part of that escape is finding a connection with, like, a community or people. So, right, like, I hope that we can continue this narrative.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. And guys, I hope you take care of yourselves. And you have a good day, DJ.
Thanks, Chili Willies. I appreciate it. Take care, and hopefully we'll talk again soon. Take care. Bye-bye. All right, well, that is going to be the show for today. I apologize that we're not running as long as we normally do. I will just taking a quick look at my calendar. I believe so. We might do an extended show on Wednesday. So Wednesday, starting about the same time, we might do a 3, possibly 4-hour show. That's just to kind of make up on some of the lost time that we've had. And I would imagine the next 2 days are going to be very interesting around the whole world. So I want to make sure that we continue to hear people's opinions. We continue to provide a safe place for people to tell their stories, to ask questions, to, I would love to talk a little bit more about the Twitch impact, not only on a streamer, but on viewers as well. I think it's a very important topic, and one that I would like to dive into a little bit more. I would love to, hear from more people from around the world, and a lot of the people that we've already heard from, please continue to call in. I want to hear your updates. I think it's even great to, like, be building a context in that regard. And I just hope that you all will stay safe and stay healthy. One thing we haven't had is someone who has actually tested positive for coronavirus. I would love to, hear that story. I don't know if we'll get that. I'm pretty sure people are more concerned about having coronavirus than necessarily wanting to call into a show over Discord. But it's something that I hope that we could get at some point or another. So take care of yourself. Please follow me. Join us on Discord. Find out when we're going live to continue this discussion. Follow me on Twitter as well. I thank you all for tuning in, and be safe, as I will see you on Wednesday. That'll be the 18th, and we'll see you then. Take care, everyone. I'll talk with you soon. Peace.